Filthy animals like you don't belong in this courthouse. The officer's voice cracked through the morning air like a whip. His hand came down across her face, a slap so loud it echoed off the marble pillars of the federal court. Gasps erupted. Phones shot into the air. In one brutal gesture, the line between law and abuse was drawn for everyone to see. She didn't stagger. She didn't even lift a hand. At just 30 years old, blazer the color of bone draped over her shoulders, Jordan Hayes stood still on the courthouse steps, arms folded across her chest like stone. Her silence was more dangerous than any shout. Around her, uniforms tightened their grip. One officer clamped her arm. Another shoved a finger in her face, lips twisted in rage. "You're under arrest. Trespassing. Fraud. Pick one." The crowd shifted uneasily. A tourist whispered, "She doesn't look like a criminal." Another voice answered, "Doesn't matter. They've already decided." Every phone lens captured the scene. Two men in blue, red faces twisted with hate, circling a woman who hadn't spoken a single word. The world was about to watch this unfold in real time. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to Jordan Hayes. Her eyes never blinked. She had seen this before, years ago, when she was just a teenager pushed off the steps of another courthouse for standing where she didn't belong. Different uniforms, same sneer, same cruelty. Those words had lived in her bones ever since. Now, they were backspoken louder, uglier, in front of the very institution sworn to uphold justice. "Confess!" one officer barked, his hand gripping her chin so hard the crowd gasped again. A live streamer muttered, "This isn't policy, this is personal." Viewers multiplied by the second. Hashtags lit up, number courthouse shame, number justice on trial. Jordan said nothing. Her calm was unbearable for them. They wanted fear, they wanted tears. All they found was a woman rooted deeper than the marble beneath their feet. "Move her out," the captain snarled, waving for backup. But even as more uniforms pushed through the crowd, the energy shifted. A student raised his voice. "She hasn't resisted once. You're humiliating her." An older veteran in the crowd tapped his cane and nodded. "That's abuse of power, plain and simple." Phones caught everything, the rage of authority, the silence of dignity, the slow ignition of public outrage, and through it all, Jordan Hayes never broke stance. This was only the beginning. The slap still hung in the air when another officer stepped forward. His boots struck the stone steps like drumbeats. He jabbed a finger an inch from Jordan's eye. "Admit it. You're trespassing. You forged those documents. People like you always cheat the system." The crowd hissed. A teenager in a hoodie muttered, "He's accusing her of fraud without even checking." A woman clutching a stroller shook her head. "This is ugly. This is dangerous." But the officers doubled down. One grabbed Jordan's briefcase, yanked it from her hands, and tossed it down the steps. Papers fluttered like broken feathers across the plaza. Phones tilted to capture every page spiraling through the air. A live streamer shouted, "He just destroyed her property." His feed spiked to 10,000 viewers. Jordan still hadn't spoken. She stood steady, chin lifted, blazer shifting only slightly in the breeze. The silence burned. The louder they became, the stronger she appeared. "Get her out!" the captain barked, voice sharp enough to cut. Backup pushed through the crowd, shoulders broad, badges flashing. Someone in the back yelled, "Why is this happening? She hasn't done a thing." Then came the words that cracked the plaza in half. "You people think you can walk in here like you own it." A hush. Gasps. The weight of that phrase was centuries old, and everyone knew it. A law student standing on the edge shouted, "That's bias. That's racial profiling, plain and simple." His voice shook, but it carried. The veteran with the cane stepped forward, steel in his tone. "I served this country, and I know abuse of power when I see it. This is it." The officers sneered, unfazed. One bent low, seized Jordan's chin in his grip, forcing her head up. "Confess," he snarled, "or you'll be dragged out in cuffs." Phone zoomed closer. A woman live streaming whispered, "This is assault. This is happening right now." Through it all, Jordan Hayes did not flinch. She had been told she didn't belong before at 16, shoved off courthouse steps by men in suits who saw only her skin, not her right. That memory bled into the present. Different faces, same contempt. But this time, She wasn't just a teenager left to swallow the shame. She was more, much more, and the world was about to find out. The officer's hand clamped around her chin, trying to force her head up like she was prey-cornered. The crowd gasped, a ripple of unease spreading across the courthouse steps. But Jordan Hayes didn't flinch. Her stillness was sharper than any strike, heavier than any word they hurled at her. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her free hand. No sudden motion, no panic, just the kind of control that makes an enemy hesitate. Her fingers slid into the pocket of her cream blazer. A murmur spread through the witnesses. "What's she doing?" a student whispered. "She's not resisting," another voice said. "She's preparing." From the pocket emerged a slim black phone, small but deliberate, glowing faintly as she pressed a single button. No tremor in her hand, no quiver in her voice. When she spoke, it was calm, measured, impossible to ignore. "Activate court protocol." A hush fell over the steps. The words landed like a gavel in a silent courtroom. On the other end, a voice answered immediately, crisp, professional, prepared. "Protocol live. Do you require verification?" The officer sneered, his grip still on her chin. "Stop playing games. Who are you calling your boyfriend? Some fake lawyer to scare us." His tone dripped with mockery, but his eyes flickered, just once, toward the glowing device in her hand. Jordan didn't even look at him. She spoke clearly into the phone, her words meant for the crowd as much as for the system on the line. "Timestamp this incident. Record the assault. Secure live stream feeds." Mark the biased language. Gasps rippled outward. A woman holding her phone muttered into her live stream. "She's logging everything. Real time. She knows exactly what she's doing." The officer lunged for the device, but a sharp tone-chirped lock engaged, screen flashing red. He pulled back like it stung him. Jordan's voice cut through, soft but unshakable. "Encrypted. You can't touch this." The captain barked from behind. "Cut her off. Don't let her spread lies." But even before his words faded, a law student shouted back, "She has every right to record this. You can't erase evidence when the whole world's watching." The world was indeed watching. Live stream counters surged 10,000, 20, 30. Comments flew faster than anyone could read. "She's brilliant. They're finished. History's happening right here." Jordan lowered the phone slightly, but her voice carried further now, rolling like thunder over the crowd. "Proceed to escalation," she commanded. The voice on the other end responded instantly. "Confirmed. Internal Affairs notified. Court Ethics Board is now monitoring live. Officers identified. Badge 1,000, 324. Badge 1,000, 487. All language recorded. Assault logged." The color drained from the captain's face. He shouted again, but his voice cracked under the weight of cameras, phones, and truth. "She's bluffing. Don't believe her." Yet his own men hesitated. One officer loosened his grip on Jordan's arm. Another shifted back, eyes flicking to the crowd, then to his badge. Doubt had slipped in like water through cracked stone. Jordan didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her silence was no longer submission. It was command. And the storm was only beginning. "Remove her!" The captain's bark cut across the plaza, but his words no longer carried the same authority. They bounced against the stone facade of the courthouse and dissolved into the rising murmur of the crowd. Something had shifted, and everyone felt it. At first it was one voice. A young man in a law school hoodie stepped forward, hands shaking but jaw set. "She hasn't resisted once," he shouted, his voice cracking but bold. "You're humiliating her, not arresting her." The words hit like a match. Phones swung toward him. The crowd, once scattered and passive, hummed with energy. "He's right," someone yelled from the steps. "This isn't procedure, it's harassment." A woman clutching a stroller added louder. "This is bias, we all see it." Applause broke out, small at first, then growing into a rhythm that echoed between the marble columns. The officer's posture stiffened. One tightened his grip on Jordan's arm, but the cameras watching from every angle made his hand tremble. Then came the veteran, gray hair under a worn cap, a cane tapping against stone as he moved forward. His presence alone pulled the noise down to silence. When he spoke, his words carried like thunder. "I fought for this country," he said, voice gravel and steel, "and I know abuse when I see it. This," he jabbed the cane toward the uniforms, "isn't justice. It's shame in blue." The crowd roared. Cheers, claps, chants rising from every side. The captain's face reddened. He screamed, "She's a fraud! A con artist! Don't be fooled!" But the noise swallowed him. His voice, once absolute, now sounded desperate weak. And then, the moment that cracked everything open, a young clerk stepped out from the courthouse doors, nervous, clutching a notepad. Her voice trembled but carried. "I saw her name this morning," she said, eyes darting toward Jordan. "Jordan Hayes. She's listed on the docket. She belongs here more than any of you." A collective gasp erupted. The crowd surged forward, phones lifting higher. Notifications exploded on live streams. "Confirmed! She's in the docket! They tried to erase her! She's the judge!" One officer instantly released Jordan's arm. Another took a step back, sweat beading at his temple. For the first time, fear wasn't in the crowd, it was in their eyes. The veteran raised his cane high, pointing directly at the captain. "The people see you. The world sees you. Every second of this is carved into history, and you can't bury it." Jordan still hadn't spoken. She didn't need to. Her silence had become a weapon, her stillness the verdict. And now, the silence didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to them. The captain's jaw clenched. His eyes darted to the crowd, then back to Jordan, then to the officers hesitating at his side. Authority was slipping through his fingers, and he knew it. Rage filled the cracks. "Cuff her!" he barked. His command echoed across the steps, louder than the chants but hollow at its core. One officer moved first. His hand snapped to his belt, metal cuffs clinking in the sunlight. The sound sliced through the plaza. Phones zoomed in. The crowd shouted in protest. "She hasn't done anything. This is illegal." The officer lunged for Jordan's wrist. In the same motion, another yanked her briefcase from the ground and flung it open. Papers exploded into the air, fluttering like wounded birds across the courthouse steps. Legal briefs, transcripts, sealed files, all torn loose, scattered under heavy boots. A woman live streaming screamed into her phone, "They're destroying her case files. They're erasing evidence in front of us." Her feed crossed 50,000 viewers in seconds. Comments poured like fire. Outrageous. Get their badge numbers. History is being made right now. Jordan did not resist. She let the cuffs hover inches from her skin, let the papers fall, let the storm rage. Then she raised her chin, eyes locked on the captain, and spoke just 6 words. "Proceed to escalation. Confirm live transmission." Her phone, still glowing in her palm, beeped once. The crisp voice returned. "Escalation confirmed. Internal Affairs recording. Court Ethics Board actively monitoring. Transmission live to Oversight Committee." The officer holding the cuffs froze. His knuckles whitened around the steel, but his arm would not move. Every eye on the steps bore into him. The crowd erupted. "You touch her, you're finished." "We're all witnesses." The captain snarled. Stepping forward himself, he snatched a fistful of Jordan's scattered papers, crumpling them in his palm. "This is over," he shouted, spittle flying. "You're nobody, you're done here." But even as he screamed, the live stream counters ticked higher, 60,000, 70, 80. Hashtags blazed across the screen. Number Justice on trial, number Jordan Hayes, number court shame. Jordan's voice cut through the chaos, calm as stone. "Every word you say is being archived. Every gesture preserved. You are not silencing me. You are indicting yourselves." The veteran lifted his cane again, voice ringing out. "Do it. Cuff her. Tear her files. And watch the world destroy you faster than any court could." The officer with the cuffs stepped back, shaken. The one holding the crumpled papers released them, scraps falling like ash to the marble steps. The crowd roared. Authority had cracked. The captain's fury burned, but his grip on the moment was slipping fast. Jordan stood tall in the center of it all, silent but immovable, the eye of the storm she herself had summoned. And the storm was far from over. The captain's face glistened with sweat. His voice, once sharp and commanding, now shook with fury. "Enough games," he spat. He motioned for the officers flanking Jordan. "Drag her down these steps if you have to." One officer grabbed her arm again, this time rougher, digging his fingers into her sleeve. Another reached for her shoulder, ready to shove. The crowd erupted. "Don't touch her!" a woman screamed, her phone trembling in her hand. "She has rights," shouted another. "This is assault." But the captain wanted more than control. He wanted humiliation. His voice rose above the chaos, cutting through the chants and protests. "You don't belong here. You never will. You think walking in with a cheap blazer and a phone makes you one of us? You're nothing. Nothing but a trespasser who forgot her place. The words hit harder than the slap. Gasps broke out like gunfire. People shook their heads in disbelief. The live stream comment feeds flooded with outrage. Blatant racism. He said it out loud. No going back now. Jordan didn't move. The officers tugged, tried to pull her down a step, but she held firm, anchored like the stone beneath her feet. Her eyes never wavered. From the edge of the crowd, a teenager's voice cracked through. This is why we don't trust them. The chant caught. Shame, shame, shame. Dozens joined in. The sound rolled like thunder, rattling even the most hardened officers. The veteran raised his cane high, his voice booming over the chants. I've heard those words before. So has every black man and woman who dared to walk where someone said they don't belong. And every time those words were spoken, history remembered the shame, not the power. The officers pulling Jordan faltered, sweat beading at their brows. The cuffs dangled useless in one's hand. The other looked over his shoulder at the growing sea of cameras, chants, and eyes burning with fury. The captain roared again, his desperation naked. Cuff her now, or you'll regret it. His voice cracked, trembling under its own weight. Jordan finally moved, not to fight, not to pull away, but to tilt her head ever so slightly, her gaze cutting straight into his. And when she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried like a verdict. You think I don't belong? She paused, letting the silence suffocate the steps. Then ask yourself, why do you? The crowd exploded. Cheers, gasps, shouts of agreement. The chant shifted, fierce and unstoppable. She belongs here. She belongs here. Oh, the captain staggered back a step, his authority crumbling under the sound of his own failure echoing around him. Jordan remained unmoved, silent once more, but the tide had turned. The insult meant to erase her had instead ignited everyone else. The courthouse steps were no longer his arena. They were hers. The chant still thundered across the plaza. She belongs here. She belongs here. When Jordan finally lifted her phone again, her eyes locked on the captain, unflinching, as if daring him to speak. Her voice was steady, cold, precise. Escalate protocol. Begin evidence transfer. The phone beeped, a single tone that seemed louder than the chants. The crisp voice answered instantly. Confirmed. All live feeds secured. Audio and video transmitting to Oversight Committee. Backup servers engaged. The crowd gasped. A student whispered to her live stream, It's official. She's pushing this straight to the top. Notifications exploded. Oversight Committee just tagged. This is history. Watch them squirm. The captain's face twisted. Shut that down! Cut the feed! He screamed. But one of his own officers hesitated, hands frozen on his radio. Another muttered under his breath, Sir, it's already gone public. Jordan took a slow step forward, her blazer brushing against the arm still trying to hold her. She didn't resist. She didn't need to. Her words were enough. Every insult, every assault, every word you tried to bury is being preserved. There will be no silence. Not this time. The officer gripping her arm looked down at his hand, shame flickering in his eyes. Slowly, reluctantly, he released her. Phones caught the moment, zooming in. A cheer rose from the crowd. The captain lunged forward, grabbing the crumpled papers still scattered across the steps. He waved them like trophies. These mean nothing. She's no one. His voice cracked, desperate. Jordan turned her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. Display docket entry Hayes, Jordan A. presiding. Her phone chirped again, projecting a holographic display into the air names, case numbers, her title marked clearly. Presiding Judge Pro Tempore. Gasps swept through the plaza. Dozens of cameras caught the glowing letters. She's on the docket, someone shouted. They tried to erase her, another screamed. Look, her name's right there. The live streams exploded. Viewers poured in by the thousands, hashtags detonating, number Judge Hayes, number court exposed, number justice rising. The captain staggered, papers slipping from his hands. His officers stepped back, the line of blue fraying under the heat of exposure. Jordan's voice cut through the chaos once more, each word a blade. You thought silence meant weakness. You thought erasure meant victory. But silence records, and erasure leaves a trail. The veteran raised his cane, pointing at her with pride. Stand tall, Judge Hayes, he cried. The chant shifted, rolling like thunder. Judge Hayes! Judge Hayes! Judge Hayes! The courthouse steps trembled with the force of it. The tide had turned, and for the first time the captain's eyes flickered with fear. The chant shook the plaza. "Judge Hayes! Judge Hayes!" rolling like thunder across the marble steps. Phones captured every angle, thousands of eyes locked on the woman who had turned silence into fire. Jordan stood firm, phone glowing in her hand, the docket projection still hovering in the air. The captain tried to shout over the roar, his voice ragged. "She forged that! She hacked the system!" But his words bounced off stone and disbelief. The crowd wasn't listening anymore. Jordan finally lifted her gaze to the swarm of cameras, her voice cutting clean through the storm. "Yes, my name is on the docket. Today I was scheduled as Judge Pro Tempore, but that's not the full truth." She let the silence hold, stretching the moment until every heartbeat on the steps seemed to pause. Then she spoke again, steady as a gavel strike. "I am Jordan Hayes, Black woman CEO of Hayes Legal Reform. My company designed the very oversight systems that monitor this courthouse. The protocols you've just triggered, they're mine. The transmission you cannot erase, mine. And the board reviewing your every word?" She locked eyes with the captain. "They answer to me." "Oh." The crowd erupted gasps, cheers, shouts crashing together like a tidal wave. Phones shook in the hands of stunned witnesses. Livestream comments flooded faster than screens could scroll. "She owns the system. CEO reveal. History right here." One officer dropped his cuffs, metal clattering on the stone. Another took 2 steps back, muttering, "Oh God, we just assaulted the CEO." The captain spun on him, wild-eyed, but found no loyalty left. The line of uniforms was breaking apart, one crack at a time. Jordan didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words carried all the weight of revelation. "You called me trespasser, fraud, nobody, but every insult you threw only revealed your fear. You tried to strip me of dignity in front of the world. Instead, you gave me the stage to show exactly who I am." The veteran with the cane lifted it skyward, tears brimming in his eyes. "Black woman CO," he shouted, voice shaking with pride. "Judge Hayes!" The chant morphed instantly, deafening. "Black woman CO! Black woman CO!" The captain clutched at the papers in his hands, but they slipped through his grip, scattering like ash. His voice cracked, swallowed by the roar. This isn't over." But everyone knew it was. Jordan Hayes stood at the top of the courthouse steps, blazer billowing in the wind, her silence heavier than stone, her words echoing across history. The world was watching, and she was finally seen. The words, "Black woman CO," thundered like a drumline, echoing off every marble pillar of the courthouse. The chant was no longer just a sound, it was a declaration, a shield forged from thousands of voices. The captain tried to bark again, but the roar drowned him. His badge gleamed under the sunlight, but it had lost its meaning. He raised his hand to signal, yet not a single officer moved. Their eyes darted to the crowd, to their phones, to the live feed screens that glowed with their names and badge numbers. Exposure had shackled them more tightly than any order could free. Then the crowd began to move. A woman with a stroller wheeled herself to the front, parking firmly between Jordan and the officers. A student stepped down from the railing, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. The veteran planted his cane against the stone and leaned forward, daring any man in uniform to try. One by one, strangers who had started as bystanders became a wall. Phones were lifted like torches. Screens beamed with comments, "Protect her! We're all witnesses!" This is history unfolding. The captain's fury twisted his face. "Step aside! She's under arrest!" His voice cracked, brittle as glass. "No," said the young clerk who had revealed the docket entry. She moved to Jordan's side, her notepad clutched like a shield. "She's not under arrest. She's under protection." Cheers erupted. The chant shifted, louder, relentless. "Protect her! Protect her!" The steps trembled under the weight of voices. One officer dropped his radio, the crack of plastic on stone echoing louder than the captain's orders. Another loosened his belt, slipping the cuffs back into their pouch, unwilling to draw them again. Their silence spoke louder than mutiny, it was surrender. Jordan stood in the center of it all, blazer swaying in the wind, her face calm as ever. She did not raise a hand, did not shout a word. Yet the crowd moved as if commanded, forming a circle of defiance around her. The live stream counters surged 100,000, 150, 200. Hashtags detonated across feeds. Number Black Woman CO, number Judge Hayes, number Justice on trial. The captain staggered back a step, eyes wild. He turned to his men, desperate. Do something! But no one moved. The weight of public judgment pressed heavier than his command. Jordan finally lifted her phone again, her voice slicing clean through the noise. Log this moment. Officers have lost operational control. Authority has shifted to civilian oversight. The crisp reply came back at once. Logged. Oversight acknowledges. Awaiting your directive. Gasps rippled through the plaza. The crowd sensed it. The storm was about to break. The captain clutched his badge like a lifeline, but his hand shook. For the first time, fear shadowed his eyes. And Jordan Hayes, Black Woman CEO, stood tall in the silence that followed, ready to deliver the next blow. The plaza had gone still, the kind of silence that comes before a verdict. Phones were raised like a forest of eyes, waiting for the strike. The captain clutched his badge to his chest, as if the small piece of metal could shield him from the truth unraveling around him. Jordan raised her phone once more. Her voice was calm, measured, undeniable. Effective. Immediately suspend badge 1,324, Captain Ray Donovan. Suspend badge 1,487, Officer Mark Keegan. Terminate their access credentials. Lock them out of the system. The crowd gasped. The phone beeped, and the crisp voice answered, Confirmed. Suspension order acknowledged. Processing. Then it happened. A shrill buzz echoed from the captain's chest. His badge glowed red, vibrating once before going dark. The officer beside him jerked as his own badge flickered, then blinked out completely. Their radios crackled with static, then died. Access denied. Authority stripped bare in front of 100 witnesses and hundreds of thousands more online. The crowd erupted. Cheers thundered, echoing through the courthouse plaza. Someone shouted, Justice, live and raw. A live stream caption flashed across the screen. They're done. Fired live. The captain's face drained of color. He tapped his badge, slapped it against his chest, desperate. Nothing. The silence of the device was louder than the crowd's roar. Jordan didn't flinch. Internal Affairs now holds jurisdiction. The Oversight Committee has the evidence. You are no longer officers of this court, nor guardians of its law. You are defendants on record. The veteran slammed his cane against the steps, 3 sharp strikes that cut through the noise. That's justice. That's what justice looks like. Phones zoomed in on the 2 disgraced officers. Their hands hung useless at their sides, uniforms suddenly nothing more than cloth. The line of blue behind them broke apart. Some stepped back into the crowd. Others turned away, unwilling to meet Jordan's eyes. The captain's voice cracked, weak, almost pleading. You can't do this. Jordan's eyes locked on him, steady and unblinking. I already did. The words landed like a gavel. Final. Irreversible. The crowd surged forward in a wave of sound. Black Woman CEO, Judge Hayes, Black Woman CEO. Their chant shook the plaza, every syllable stamping the truth deeper into history. The captain stumbled, his authority gone, his future erased in less than a minute. His partner buried his face in his hands, shame rolling off him in waves. Jordan lowered her phone. For the first time since the slap, her lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile, not of triumph, but of certainty. Justice wasn't coming tomorrow. Justice had already arrived, and everyone there had witnessed it. The courthouse plaza erupted like a storm breaking loose. Applause thundered, echoing off every marble wall. The chant was no longer fractured, no longer scattered. It surged as one voice, one truth. Black Woman CEO, Judge Hayes, Black Woman CEO. Phones trembled in the hands of witnesses as they captured history. A law student wiped tears from his cheeks even while streaming live. I'll never forget this day, he whispered to his audience. This is what power looks like when it doesn't need to shout. The veteran slammed his cane against the steps in rhythm with the chant, his eyes wet. I waited decades to see this, he said, voice breaking. And I've seen enough shame. Today I see pride. A young mother lifted her child onto her shoulders so he could see above the crowd. Remember this, she whispered in his ear. Remember her. The boy clapped his small hands to the chant, eyes wide with wonder. Meanwhile, the 2 disgraced officers stood frozen in the wreckage of their authority. the captain's hands still pressed against the dead badge on his chest, as if sheer willpower could bring it back to life. But it lay dark, lifeless, stripped of power forever. Beside him, Officer Keegan sank onto the steps, face in his palms. His uniform, once armor, now looked like a costume. His shoulders shook not with rage, but with the weight of knowing the world had just watched him fall. Livestream feeds zoomed in mercilessly, broadcasting their collapse to hundreds of thousands of viewers. Comments flew like arrows. No sympathy. They earned this. Justice served. The captain staggered, voice cracking into the air, almost begging. "Please, we didn't know. We didn't realize." His words collapsed into silence, drowned by chants that grew only louder. No one listened. The plaza had no room for excuses. Jordan remained still at the center, her blazer whipping in the wind. She hadn't raised her arms, hadn't shouted once, yet the world revolved around her now. Silence had carried her further than violence ever could. The clerk who had first spoken stepped forward again, notepad trembling in her hand. "Thank you," she whispered to Jordan, her voice swallowed by the cheers but her eyes full of gratitude. Jordan inclined her head gently, the gesture saying what words didn't need to. "You don't thank me. You thank justice." The applause swelled higher, clapping in waves, hands striking together like a drumbeat of history. The plaza was no longer a battleground. It was a celebration. And in the middle of it, the two men who had once believed they owned the moment now stood stripped, their authority turned to dust, their shame immortalized in every camera angle. Justice had spoken, and the world applauded. The chants still rolled like thunder. "Black woman CEO, Judge Hayes." But Jordan raised one hand, and the plaza quieted. Not silence born of fear, but of respect. Every phone lens, every eye, fixed on her. She took a single step forward, standing where the captain once tried to erase her. Her voice was steady, calm, unshakable. "You called me trespasser, fraud, nobody. But here I stand not because you gave me permission, but because justice does not need permission to exist." Gasps rippled. The veteran wiped his eyes. The clerk clutched her notepad like scripture. The officers lowered their heads, their badges lifeless on their chests. Jordan's gaze swept the crowd, then lifted higher, as if speaking to more than those on the steps. Dignity doesn't scream, it doesn't shove, it stands tall, it endures. And when the world finally sees it, no uniform, no insult, no violence can erase it. A hush fell, heavier than the chants had been. Then, slowly, applause swelled again, stronger, deeper, rolling like a tide that could not be stopped. Jordan turned, her cream blazer catching the wind. She climbed the final steps of the courthouse, her heels striking marble like a gavel. At the doorway, she paused once more, glancing back at the crowd. Her final words cut through the air like a verdict. "I am not the clip you upload. I am the outcome you can't deny." With that, she stepped inside. The doors closed behind her. And outside, the roar of history carried her name.